The MEAC SWAC challenge is tomorrow, so it's time for a prediction. For those of you who don't know, FAMU will be squaring off against Norfolk State. FAMU of the SWAC and Norfolk of the MEAC. Now I'm going to get into my actual winner and score prediction at the end. But first, I got to walk you through how I got to my conclusion. So in order to make an accurate prediction, I looked at a couple of things. I looked at starting quarterbacks going into this game. I looked at win-loss record of last year, as well as strength of schedules of last year, as well as coaches. So let's start with the coaches. Now, Norfolk State's coach is on the hot seat because, there's some pressure on him to start winning. Whereas with FAMU, their coach won the Celebration Bowl and went on to Duke's coaching staff. And so the coach that they have now, this is his first year at FAMU with high expectations. So coaching, I guess you could kind of consider it a wash because both have high expectations on them for different reasons. So then we go to last year's results. Obviously, FAMU ran through the SWAC, went undefeated in the SWAC. Their only loss was to USF or UCF, one or the other. However, one knock against FAMU is outside of that game, their non-conference schedule wasn't that tough. They played West Florida, which is a Division II school, a top Division II school, but D2 nonetheless. Whereas on the other side with Norfolk, they only won 3 games last year. One of them was against Delaware State, so it's kind of like, But one thing, I did like Norfolk State's schedule from last year in the sense that it was very HBCU heavy, like even in the non-conference. So I liked their schedule from last year. It was a nice schedule. They didn't win a whole lot of those games, but it was a nice schedule. So when it comes to obviously ending results of last year, you got to lean in the direction of FAMU. It's not even close. So then we go into, okay, who's going to be the quarterback going into this year? FAMU's quarterback is a transfer from Florida Atlantic who has some pretty good stats, some pretty decent numbers, made some plays down there at Florida Atlantic. And he comes in being placed on one of the preseason all-SWAC teams. So they have high hopes for this transfer quarterback. Whereas on Norfolk State, the 2 quarterbacks that they have coming back from last year, neither one of them were all that impressive. Neither one of them were even close to 60% completion percentage. Both of them, their touchdown to interception ratio was about 2 to 1. Basically, every 2 touchdowns, they throw 1 interception. Neither one of them was close to throwing it for 200 yards a game. So no matter which quarterback they go with, nothing really impressive at the quarterback position. Unless they're going to go with the JUCO transfer, which I don't see that happening. So coaches was I call it a wash. Quarterback got to go with FAMU. Resume and schedule as far as results from last year, got to go to FAMU. Then we just look at basic stuff. Last year, FAMU, granted it's a new coach and new quarterback, but they still have a lot of weapons and they have a lot of guys that transferred in. Last year, they scored 30 points a game, gave up around 15. Whereas you look at Norfolk State, they scored around 22, gave up 30. They only scored over 30 points twice last year, and one of those games was Delaware State. And we just talked about that quarterback situation. So offense, got to give it to FAMU. Defense, got to give it to FAMU. So when you go down the rundown, how they finished last year, got to go to FAMU. Coaches, I'll call it a wash. Quarterback, FAMU. Defense, FAMU. Offense, FAMU. So at that point, so with all that being said, I'm going to have to pick FAMU to win the SWAC MEAC Challenge due to the fact that FAMU's coach will be coaching his first game at FAMU, whereas with Norfolk State, this coach has been there. I'm not going to call for a blowout. Not to mention he's on the hot seat. So just based strictly on that alone, I'm going to call a somewhat close game. I got the final score, FAMU 24, Norfolk State 13. I have FAMU winning the MEAC SWAC Challenge 24-13.